Hey everyone, this episode is brought to you by River, the place that I personally go to securely invest in Bitcoin with confidence and with zero fees.
Our capital needs will never catch up with the compound annual growth rate of Bitcoin. So essentially, our treasury will always be ahead of our capital needs. And maybe in 4 years, we're in the National League and I need to spend a couple of million on infrastructure. So that takes me down to 18 million. And maybe the next year, another couple of million. Maybe that takes me down to 16 million. But Bitcoin does another run and maybe that 16 becomes 60 million. Just a 3x at that point. Even a 2x becomes 40 million, 32. If Bitcoin reprices how I think it will do over the next 2 decades, we will not spend at the rate that we will grow that treasury.
This is where I want to start though, Pete. For me, when I'm looking and just kind of analyzing you and the football club and Bitcoin and all of this, the thing that I think is at your core and is upstream of all of this is this deep desire for Bedford, which to me is just kind of like, I don't know, because for me, like I have the hometown I grew up in and whatnot, and I go back there rarely, and I just don't have this. I don't know why, but I don't really have this connection to it, even though I spent the first 18 years of my life in the same town and all that. So I want to start there. You want to transform your hometown, so like your love for your town. This is what I want to start off and just kind of understand, like what is driving this deep love for your hometown.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to answer, Preston, because I don't have a clear answer to it really. Other than that, I know my investment in Bitcoin and timing. There's a lot of luck with it, right?
Mhm.
I could have discovered it 4 years later or 8 years later, and I discovered it at the time I did. I YOLO'd in, lost a bit, made a bit, figured it out, and then ended up launching a podcast, which enabled me to then understand how to invest in it. And then 8 years later, I'm kind of in this position where the podcast is a platform. I've got some of these good connections, people like yourself, other people in the industry who are experts and companies. And I've got a bit of capital myself, and I feel very lucky with that. So, yeah, how do you pay it forward? I've got
Mm.
When I first started this podcast, I emailed Jameson Lopp. I'd made 2 episodes, and he didn't know who the hell I was. And he said, "Come out to Raleigh, let's shoot some guns and record a podcast." And lots of people do give up their time. They do give up their time to allow me to make the podcast and bring an income in. And then with the football club, I'm asking everyone to back it and come and visit us and watch games and buy jerseys and burgers. And so if I'm like asking for so much, I want to give something back. And I think Bedford's the right size town where I can make a difference. And I like living here. I've lived here my whole life, Preston, apart from kind of like a year and a half 2 years at uni. I've lived here my whole life. So I've got everything I want in life. So can I give something back? And that's what I'm trying to do.
This was the funniest part for me coming to Bedford. So you had prepared all of us, and you're just saying, "Oh yeah, it's," and we try not to swear on the show. Uh, it's uptown, Preston. It's uptown. Don't worry, like lower your expectations and all this. And as an American, I show up, and I'm staying at this just beautiful hotel, very nice, the Swan Hotel, very nice hotel. And there's this gorgeous river right next to it. There's people out there doing crew right there in the water. There's these gorgeous paths to go walking, the beautiful flowers. Like, I'm just enamored by this town. And I'm thinking, what is he talking about? Now, I do realize you got Cambridge and Oxford that are like next door neighbors, like right between, or like Bedford sits in between these two like renowned towns. And I guess, is that why everybody says what they say about Bedford? Because for me as an American, this would be like a top-notch town in the US if you came over here and like walked around. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, look, I kept people to the good bits. That kind of area of the Swan, the river, and the Corn Exchange. But I also turned up on the morning of the conference, and there's a guy sleeping in a tent outside the Corn Exchange. First time I've ever seen that, the morning of the conference.
Yeah.
And then I'm sat in my car outside getting ready, and I'm seeing kids go in and out of the toilet outside. I didn't even know it was there, and I witnessed the dealing. But like most of us watching this managed decline of our economic situation in the West, well, in the wider world, everywhere. I see it evidently in where I live. I'm seeing the rise of homelessness. I'm seeing the lack of capital and funds available from the council to spend on park projects, local sports, the local community. I'm seeing shops close down regularly. I'm speaking to people who are struggling financially. So I think that's all in the back of my mind. And if anything, the thing about Bedford, it's not that it's itself crap town. It's just a nothing town. You know, people don't come to the UK and go, I'm going to go to Bedford. They go to London. They might go to Cambridge or Oxford or Bath or York. They might go to Wales, might go to Manchester or Leeds. They'll go to a city. Nobody says, I'm going to go to the UK and I'm going to go to Bedford. It's not a place you go to. And so then when I say town, I think like that. But now we have people coming to the UK and the reason to come is Bedford, which is hilarious.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. And I think that it speaks to you, for people that don't know you personally. I've known you for quite a few years. For people that don't know you personally, you're just this you're an extreme giver. And you're a person that just cares deeply about others. And I don't know, I just see a lot of reflection in what you're trying to do in the town, and very admirable and just very exciting for what we're trying to do for it. And I don't know. I think it's a story about you that is very untold, and that people do not see on the surface. They might see you, online, like poking different things, but as a person that knows you personally, I can just say it's really exciting to see what you're doing, Peter, and hats off to you.
Well, you came. I mean, you saw it. You came to a match day, and I didn't have any time to spend with you because I'm wandering around and checking on everyone. Everyone's having a good time. Everyone is okay. Trying to win a game, yeah, which we didn't. Trying to make sure everything runs okay. But yeah, look, I've been very lucky. I said to the conference when I gave my little short speech, I think Bitcoin represents so many different things to so many different people. It's hard to describe what it is. You can explain it as money, but the more time you spend in Bitcoin, I think the more time you realize what it is for you. Mm-hmm. And for me, I just see it as as I said, I see it as a pay it forward technology. If you can survive your first tour of duty, your first 4 years in Bitcoin, and you can get out alive at the end of it, you should be in a position whereby you can help others. And that's either with time or capital. And I don't have as much time as I was like, but I certainly have capital or access to other people's capital, which I can use to try and help people where I live in Bedford. And it's very easy to move to a big city or to move to a beach somewhere and help an already thriving economy. But I want to help here. I love it here. I like the people here. I just want to do something here, mate.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about, so we were at the conference that you set up there in Bedford, but you had a massive announcement. Tyler and Cameron Winklevoss, the Winklevoss twins, invested in Real Bedford, your football team. And they invested $4.5 million. That's the number that I think is hitting the headlines. But the number that I'm seeing when I see this, I'm saying, hold on a sec. If I know Pete well, he's going to put that amount into Bitcoin. Let's say we have a 5x or a 7x run. So that's more like 25 to maybe 50 million in buying power in just 12 to 18 months from now, assuming this bull market does what many of us expect it to do in the coming 12 to 18 months. That number, the 4.5, is already insane for a club this size. But if you 5 or 7x that, it gets really insane, like really fast. And the irony for me is the name of the conference over the weekend was Cheat Code. And when I'm watching what's happening play out, I'm thinking, holy cheat code for what you're competing, like the people that you're competing with, I don't think can see what's maybe about to play out here. So break it down for us. Is that my assumption correct of how you're looking at the treasury, and walk us through some of this strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. No, you've nailed it. Look, you and I know one thing is that the world is repricing in terms of Bitcoin. I don't want to spend Bitcoin right now. I don't want to spend the club's Bitcoin. I want to spend the pounds that it brings in. Similar to how when I was in Lebanon, when people have both the Lebanese pound and they have the US dollar in their pocket and they go and buy coffee, they give the Lebanese pound. They don't want to spend the dollar because that's holding value for them. And we're in this world that's repricing in terms of Bitcoin. And when I first spoke to Cameron and Tyler about this, it was just over 2 years ago. We were at a conference in Texas. I met up with them for a beer, and I just said to them, look, I've got this idea. I'd like to buy my local football club and get them in the football league. So I explained to them the league structure, and Tyler immediately said, how do you get them in the Premier League? I was like, okay, that's a different prospect, because it gets increasingly expensive every league you go up in. And you have to have infrastructure, and you'll need a stadium. So, I mean, look, rough number. If I picked a number out of the air, to take a team from the 10th tier to the Premier League, I think is a £300 million project. You might be able to do it for 100, 150, I don't know. But, I mean, at some point you need a stadium that's going to cost 50 million. If you're in the Championship, you're going to be spending 30 million on wages every time you want to have a go at it. It's an expensive project. Or you can invest a load of Bitcoin, sit it in the treasury, and if Bitcoin does what it says it will do, then maybe you can do it that way. So when we got to the point of raising, because I essentially spent the last 2 years, I think, proving that I can run a football club and that I can understand how promotions. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was able to do it sustainably. Then we can come back to that. That's just using why I always say cheat code. And I said, we need to raise as much as possible and stick it in Bitcoin. Now, with $4.5 million of Bitcoin, sat in the 9th tier of football, about to go into the 8th tier of football, we're the most well-capitalized club at that level in the country. And if Bitcoin does what I think it will do over the next 2 years, I think our capital needs will never catch up with the compound annual growth rate of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So essentially, our treasury will always be ahead of our capital needs, because we're not going to get promotion every year, Preston. But
take that back.
Well, I would hope so. But let's go on the low end. Say Bitcoin does a 4x in this cycle, and we have 20, and maybe in 4 years we're in the National League, and I need to spend a couple of million on infrastructure. So that takes me down to 18 million. And maybe the next year another couple of million. Maybe that takes me down to 16 million. But Bitcoin does another run, and maybe that 16 becomes 60 million. Just a 3x at that point. Even a 2x becomes 40 million. 32. And then the next year I might need a couple. Like the math in my head is that I think if Bitcoin reprices how I think it will do over the next 2 decades, we will not spend at the rate that we will grow that treasury based on even a declining compound annual growth rate. So that's my thesis.
Yeah.
Now, alongside that, to make that work over the next 2-3 years, I want the football club to be sustainable, live within its means, and still get promotions. Now, we've done that for the last 2 years, and we're an expensive club to run. Compared to other clubs at this level, we're a very expensive club to run. I mean, my budget for next year in step 4 is going to be about £600,000 across the whole club. There will be clubs with budgets probably anywhere ranging from 100,000 to maybe 400,000.
What's driving yours being so high?
We always want to have a competitive playing budget. So I kind of estimate what I think the top budgets will be and make sure we have one there so we can compete. We don't want to overspend there. And we're doing that for men's and ladies football at the same time. So we have high budgets. We also stream all the games. I mean, that's a £60,000 a year investment.
Okay.
We have lots of infrastructure requirements. I mean, we spent £40,000 in the ground this year just alone on putting in a stand, in changing the walkway. There'll be more requirements to do that every year, because every division you go up, you have something called a ground grading, whereby you have to do certain improvements. So there's costs that will be going into that.
Those costs keep going into the pitch that I saw.
Yes, until we have the new location ready to build on that, but we still have to have that ground ready for each level whilst we're working on another one. You can't stop work. So there's costs that go into that. We will have full-time staff next year. A lot of clubs entirely rely on volunteers, but we're trying to build a project for years ahead, so we need to invest in the staff. So we'll have full-time staff working on the club. We have a large outgoing in terms of stock, which is part of the budget. And if we don't sell all the stock, that ends up sitting as within our P&L, but it's still something we have to spend money on. We have to have the cash flow to do that. We will spend a significant amount on travel next year because we'll be going further distances, or we'll have to hire buses to take teams to games. So once you start going through it all kind of adds up. But where we probably differ from other clubs is we will invest in full-time staff. We will invest in the streaming. We do have this large investment in ladies football that we want to happen at the same time. We do support youth football. So we've built a model that works. I will, if we hit the crowds, I think we'll hit next year. And we do the merch sales, I think we'll do, which is conservative. We should be a break-even club. And if we can beat that again, because we did that last year, then great. But we're not building a club for always for next season. It's almost like the Michael Saylor thing. I'm building a club for the next 100 years, a club that can get up there and compete. And so then it's important to be sustainable. And that's a lot of work, but we're managing it at the moment.
Yeah. Talk to us about this dance that you had with Tyler and Cameron, because it happened for multiple years, and then you guys finally got a deal across the table. So talk to us about how that initially unfolded.
Yeah, they've been very good to me from the very start. They used to sponsor the podcast a while back, and when I told about the football project, they got it immediately. When I explained it, they're like, "Oh no, I get this. This is just like Bitcoin. It's a grassroots movement."
Yeah.
And when they said about the Premier League, I kind of got it in reverse when I said, well, if you pitched Bitcoin 15 years ago and said what it was trying to achieve, everyone would say, look, you're an idiot. You're not going to launch a decentralized currency that is going to dethrone every fiat currency in the world and become a global reserve currency, launched by somebody we don't know and we'll never find out who they are. People would think you're an idiot. And the same with this, saying we can take a football club from the 10th tier of English football with 40 fans to the Premier League. Again, nobody's ever done it and everyone thinks I'm an idiot. But when you merge the two together, you realize powered by Bitcoin and hard work, it is possible. So they got it straight away. And I kind of got why they got it afterwards. And look, I think what they did, and I haven't had this confirmed, but I think what they did is they agreed to sponsor the club to begin with, almost like a test. Because this isn't like a traditional investment. When you invest in software, there's traditional metrics you can look at in terms of customer acquisition cost, lifetime value. You look at the team, you see how they're doing. You maybe start with a very small seed investment. This is a very different investment. It doesn't matter how good you are at running businesses. Do you know how to win a league? And do you know how to recruit the right manager so you can win promotions? Because most businesses are fairly simple. If you're good at marketing, you create a good product, you look after your staff, you should create a successful business. You can do all the business things right with a football club, but if the 11 players go on the pitch on that day don't win enough games, you don't get promoted. So I think if anything, that they did the sponsorship to help me with the cost of running the club, and almost like a test to see if I can go and do this. And look, first season, we won the league by 9 points. This season, we've won it with a game to go. It could be by 5-6 points. Our ladies are top of the league. They're most likely going to win the league a week on Sunday, I think it is. So I think I've proved I know how to get promotions. Or
Pete, just so people understand the context, you started off at tier 7 or 6 when you first bought the club.
Tier 6 of non-leagues. So I'll explain the pyramid. The English pyramid. Yeah. You have the professional leagues, which is the Premier League, Championship, League 1, League 2. And you have promotion and relegation between the two. And that's the professional leagues. And then you have what's known as non-league. And the first level of non-league is called Step 1. Okay. But it's the 5th tier. We started in Step 6, which is the 10th tier.
Okay.
And that is a genuine pyramid where once you get to the National League, there's only one National League division. But below that, there's National North and South. And as you below that, there's 4 more divisions and so on. So there is a pyramid up to the National League, and it's a straight line up. If you finish top of most leagues, you'll go up. And then depending on the league, you'll go up if you're second, or if you're second to 5th or 3rd to 6th, you'll go into a playoff. It's very competitive because everyone wants to win their league. Or if you on the lower budget end, you're trying to survive. And so I think I proved to them a few things. I think I proved that I can win promotions. But I think I proved another things. I can do it whilst building a business which is sustainable, and I could grow the crowds So our average attendance last season was the highest in our division, and the same this season. And so I think I've kind of proved I can do it. And so when I went back to them and said, okay, I need investment, I think it was a fairly quick decision. It really, the dance was about how much and how to value the club, which is a difficult thing to do. And again, I said to them, look, if the investment's too small now, there's a chance I'm going to come back at a later date and ask for more sooner than I'd want to. If we raise this amount right now and I can leave it in the treasury and not spend it for a couple of years, I might never need to come back for more money. They understood that. They understood the strategy, that they believed in it and wanted to be part of it. So yeah, it happened all fairly quickly. It was really painless. I've never raised money before, and it was relatively painless.
Well, you had the right partner.
Yeah.
You had the right partner that understood what you're trying to do.
And they understand sports as well.
Yeah.
They understand sports and they understand the nature of sports. And I think they like the competitive side of this. And I think what will happen is down the road, as this is more successful, I think there might be other billionaires in Bitcoin who'll be like, damn it, I wish that was me.
I mean, I'm already kind of feeling that way. Not that I'm the billionaire, but
well, we will press them one day. I do. So I've kept some equity back because I would like to do a fan sale at some point of like small amounts of equity. So yourself, anyone else who loves the club, who wants to invest in the club and have just a small amount of ownership can do. So that's something we'll look to do at some point.
I think you'd have a ton of interest in that, Pete. I really do.
Well, yes, we already do. We've got a form on our website that's had over 600 inquiries.
What? Really?
Yeah, and some people want to write big checks. Yeah, we're talking tens, hundreds of thousands, and we just don't have the ability to take that much capital on now because I didn't want to dilute too much down.
Yeah, you got to have control, Pete.
I think it's that. But there will be a time beyond me, and again, it's another interesting investment, Preston, because I was talking to Tyler and Camera about this. I said, this is an investment for you, whereby if we do get to the Premier League, you'll own a significant amount of equity in a highly valuable asset.
Yeah.
In the most watched sporting league in the world.
Yeah.
For me, it will never be about the money. So I'm asking them to depart from money for something where I don't care about the money. I just care about the success.
The journey. Yeah. The journey and
So if anything, because I don't need the money and the success is more important, I probably will work harder at this. And there'll be a time beyond me where I don't think it's the part of my inheritance that would go to my children. I think it would somehow go to the town in some kind of trust that the town owns and no individual owns.
I've got a really strange tangent, but I think it's connected.
Yeah.
I read, and I don't know if this is rumor or real, that Universal Studios is trying to set up a theme park in Bedford. Is this true?
This is true. It's also totally insane.
This is a really big deal, in my opinion.
Huge.
For the club.
Yes.
Because it's going to bring such a different level of capital into the town and interest into the town. And what's the time? Is this happening, or is there just talk about this? Like what's going on?
They've bought the land. So they bought 500 acres. It's about a 4-minute drive from my house. It's just insane.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
So I got to tell you a story. So there's a theme park in Pennsylvania. It's called Hershey, like Hershey chocolate.
Yeah.
The whole town revolves around this chocolate factory. A lot of it's been outsourced out of town, but what's really interesting is they've set up this massive sports complex in association with the park. And so you'll have like state championships and like all these types of events that happen at Hershey Park. And I guess I'm looking at what's happening with Universal coming into the town, and I'm looking at your situation and how you guys are going to have to grow. And it almost seems like there's this situation that could be like mutually beneficial to each other if there's somehow a way that you could preemptively kind of work together, or I don't know.
The Universal Stadium, it's got a good ring to it.
Yeah.
It's got a ring.
Yeah. So
no,
it's something that you've just. Is this something you've thought about? Is this something that you're entertaining? Is there any way you could have a conversation with them early on from like, before they start work.
Yes. So the status of the project, it was announced, I think, about a year ago. I think everyone in Bedford was like, what?
It's the
What are you on
land.
about?
They got the land there.
Yes. So we're a good location. So where they bought the land's really interesting. There's two main motorway spines that go up through the country, through the left and the right. You've got the
Yeah.
M1, which goes up towards Manchester,
Yeah.
and then you've got the A1. And Bedford's really interesting in that we've got a bypass between the two, and we're 40 minutes north of London. And so we connect the country very well. So what we have had around here is lots of logistics places pop up. We have a huge Amazon warehouse here because we're perfectly located. On that bypass is where they bought the land. So getting that amount of land near London is very difficult, but a train to Bedford from London is 40 minutes. So if you fly into London, we're very easy to get to, but we're also good to get to from the north of England as well. So we're in a very good location. The talk is that they think it will take up to 10 years to complete the planning and the infrastructure requirements and the build. But think where our football club might be in 10 years' time. We might be a professional team in the professional leagues by then. I mean, that's certainly my hope. So, no, it's certainly on my mind. Yes, I want to speak to them. I do have connections who can get me to talk to them. I hope it's something they'd be interested in. I certainly think our investment from Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss gives me the credibility to sit in the room with them and say, I think there is a potential relationship here. But I also think of it a little bit like the Raiders moving to Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
If you support the Green Bay Packers, I expect the Green Bay Packers is the whole town going to watch the Green Bay Packers when they play. That's pretty much it. But I think with the Raiders, I think a large number of people go and watch the Raiders play are people who've come to Vegas for the weekend. And so I think Real Bedford has an opportunity of being that kind of team whereby we have the people from the town going, but if there's thousands, tens of thousands of people going to this theme park, they may also choose to come watch a Real Bedford game over that weekend. So no, it's definitely on my mind. It is an incredible gift for the town of Bedford. It certainly puts us on the map. We have another place called Alton Towers, which is a huge theme park. There's no reason to go to Alton unless you're going to Alton Towers, but now we might have two reasons to come to Bedford, which is one, to go to the Universal Studios, or two, to go to Real Bedford. There's another interesting fact. I don't know if I saw you and showed you, but when you came to our football ground, did you see the large airship hangars?
No, I didn't see that.
They're about a 2-minute drive from the football ground. That's where they shot Batman.
Oh, wow. Really?
They're the largest indoor structure in the UK. They built Gotham City in Bedford.
No way.
Yeah. There's so many films that have been shot there.
I was joking on Twitter the whole time I was in Bedford, calling it a resort town, and it might turn into a resort town with all this stuff happening. And oh my God, Pete, the comments from it was hilarious. The people from the US, like, oh wow, that looks so beautiful. The people from the UK, I can't believe you actually put that into writing, that this is a the comments were hilarious.
The funny thing is you commented in a very British way. It was almost very British humor. And I was just looking at that picture going, Preston, you're not allowed to stand on that grass.
The grass picture was hilarious. And then your comment, and then you replied back to me, and I was like, oh, I think I did sort of piss Pete off just a touch by stepping
No, you didn't. You did.
All right. Well,
no, you embraced Bedford. Everyone embraced it, and it was really surreal and overwhelming because we do this job, we make these podcasts, we go to these events, we become a community of friends, but to have everyone come to my place, honestly, it was really humbling. So I was overwhelmed by a lot of it.
I mean, I've been to a lot of conferences, Pete, and I'm not just saying this because you're a close friend. I had so much fun there. The pubs, just like everything was within walking distance. And it was just, everybody was having a blast. I don't know if you're going to take this recommendation, but the size was actually perfect because you can get to know the people that are there. Yeah. I think you had like 550 people at the conference. Yeah. And for me, it's a lot of fun to have like real conversations with people and not feel like you're getting kind of pulled in, numerous different directions. But one other thing, and I heard this from at least 5 people when I was there. I'm so glad that the panels and like the conference was only one day, and we had another day to just go have fun with everybody that was there. And I'm serious. I heard that from so many people that it wasn't like 3 days of like listening to panels over and over again. So as far as a sustain, like,
so a lot of people said to us things like, do you know, like the attendees, because it's not cheap to go. I mean, it's £250 for a ticket, £1,000 if you're VIP. But they said the cool thing was I would go to a bar and there would be Preston Pysh or Jeff Booth, and I could talk to them, and they were real in front of me. Because if you go to Bitcoin, Miami previously or Nashville now, it's a huge event, and it's hard to get that connection with people. I think we're going to make it slightly bigger. I think we're going to add a couple hundred more next year. And I think it will sell out. I think there was a lot of FOMO.
Yeah.
But what was interesting is we did it last year as just a live podcast, casually, 150 people, and took them to the football. And then we realized that the thing about the conferences, nobody really wants to go to the second day. They're all hungover. If you've got the opening slot on the second day, you've essentially got this ghost shift that no one wants to be at. And so it's really difficult to get people interested in the second day. But if the second day is a barbecue and beers and watching a game of football,
later in the afternoon.
Yeah, it's just so much fun. And I think that's why people had such a good time, because they're like, this is so different. And I think the conference scene will start becoming more experiential, because there's a couple I've been invited to recently, and it's 3 days of talks. I'm like, I don't want to do this. Yeah. I like Pacific, because at Pacific, they do such a good job of the non-conference thing, the outside with the basketball and the game and the bar. I love that one. And I love Bitcoin magazines because it's so big and everyone goes, and I'll be in Nashville. But the ones which are just 2-3 days of panels, I've got zero interest, because I just want it more experiential now.
Yeah. Well, so much of it is just the networking that takes place, and just meeting other people, like-minded people that have a love for like what the whole movement's about, being able to network with them. And, dude, it was so much fun. Oh my God, was it fun.
Here's some other cool things. Let me tell you some other cool things at the back of it. So, firstly, the vegan restaurant next door, the vegan coffee shop, she had her busiest Friday ever, and she decided to keep all the Bitcoin. She said, I'm going to keep the Bitcoin. I think this is the future. She said, everyone was so nice. It's the nicest event that's ever been on. And I think I want to keep it. So she's keeping all the Bitcoin she brought in. There was a local restaurant called Wagamama's. It's a chain of Japanese restaurants. They've emailed me and they said, our restaurant was full of people wearing Rail Bedford merchandise on the Saturday night, and the atmosphere was great. So they've invited me in for dinner on Monday to go and talk to them about it. There was another one, the pizza place that did the pizzas outside. I had to settle my balance with them because we owe them for the VIP food. They've asked for us to pay them in Bitcoin. And so we've got this kind of gradual orange pilling of people in the town as well. La Terrazza, the restaurant, had their busiest night. So I think a lot of people in the town who maybe were skeptical started to realize, oh no, this is a really good thing for Bedford.
Mm-hmm. Well, no doubt. And I paid for this sweatshirt I'm wearing right now with Bitcoin. It was amazing.
There you go. Thanks for your sets.
I want to talk a little bit about the business of a football team.
Yeah.
Specifically, just like how, like your thought process, and I don't know if you're comfortable sharing your thought process on this. I'm assuming you will.
Yeah.
Just, I would think it'd be so hard and time consuming to be able to audit all the players, the up and coming players, like who I'm going to add to the roster, whether I'm overpaying. I think that's the part that would be, as a value investor, as a deep value investor, I'm thinking in terms of, can this guy literally kick the ball 5 times better because of the value that you'd pay than this other guy that I can get? And like performing this qualitative dance in a way that like, hey, maybe next year this guy's just going to kind of suck because he's getting old or whatever, like taking so many variables into account. Clearly you can do it. You've done it very well for two years in a row. You were number one in running a team right out of the gate. I find that miraculous. How do you go about that process? It seems like it'd be so difficult to look across the whole spectrum of players and being able to select. And I don't know.
Well, this comes down to the manager. So I will get a lot of plaudits in the Bitcoin world for doing this.
Yeah.
In the football world, a lot of the plaudits will go to the manager. And I think it's a job that both of us do together, in that we have a very clear separation of roles and responsibilities. He's everything on the pitch, which means players, player selection, player acquisition, player performance. I don't interfere with that at all. The team is his team, and I'm okay with that. I'm everything off the pitch. I'm the brand, I'm the marketing, I'm the business side. And we talk all the time. We speak every day. I mean, we had a coffee this morning. We're meeting up at 5 o'clock today. We speak regularly. But I can talk to you in detail about the business side of it. But in terms of the players and the player acquisition, that's all the manager. What I can tell you is really interesting is how important they are. So when I actually bought the club, I had them for half a season when under their old name, Bedford FC. And they were just below the playoffs. And I changed the manager straight away. And the new manager I came in, I gave a really good budget. I said, just get us in the playoffs. They recruited a bunch of players, well-paid, very well-paid players. We had one player in the team who's paid more than anyone's been paid since. But it didn't work. We didn't get in the playoffs. We weren't getting the results. And I realized this is a lot harder than I think. You can't just throw money at it.
Yeah.
And so at the end of that season, when we became Real Bedford, I knew I had to change the manager. I realized it is the manager that drives this. You can have a great manager and no budget, and you won't go up. It'll be very hard. But you can have a great budget and a terrible manager, and you won't go up. You need a good budget and a manager who knows how to spend it. So I was told by a couple of people to speak to this guy, Rob Sinclair. He was an ex-professional. He played in the professional leagues. He played for Stevenage. He played for Forest Green. And I was told he's trying to play expansive, entertaining football and to dominate teams. And he was running a team called Ainsbury, who didn't have a budget. And I went and looked at their results before he took over and after they took over, and he changed the team around, but he did it without a budget. And so when I met him, I immediately knew he was the guy for the job. He was so professional. He was ready with a presentation to explain his strategy of how we win the league. And I said to him, tell me what you need. And he told me what he needs in terms of budget and infrastructure, and I gave it to him. And he went and won the league in the first season.
One of the most common questions I get asked from family and friends is, Preston, where do you personally buy your Bitcoin from? And the answer is really simple. I buy it on river.com. Not only can you easily buy Bitcoin with zero fees on recurring orders, you can have peace of mind knowing Bitcoin on River is held one-to-one in multi-sig cold storage, all while being fully licensed and regulated in the United States. Plus, their relationship managers are US-based and available by phone for you or your business. Additionally, River has built their own infrastructure from the ground up, which means they don't rely on third parties to function like other Bitcoin exchanges. River also just created a new feature not found anywhere else called River Link. It allows you to send Bitcoin over a text message to easily orange pill your family, pay a friend for dinner, or send a gift. There's a new standard for investing in Bitcoin, and River is setting it. Go to river.com/fundamentals and get up to $100 free when you sign up and buy Bitcoin. That's river.com/fundamentals.
And then I said the same at the end of that season. What do you need to go and win the league? And he told me, and we've just won the league again. We did the work earlier. I said, if we win this league, what do you need? He's told me. And so I've put everything in place for next season. But in terms of player budgets, player selection, player recruitment, that's entirely him. I don't get involved in any of it at all. All I do is say, what budget do you need to challenge for the title? He tells me, and I go away and I do all the business side of things to make sure he has that budget. Yeah. But it's a very clear separation. I don't criticize it. It was interesting, Preston. So we had a run recently. We had a run of games where we lost to Leverstock and we had 3 draws. And we went from a position of very clear, 8 points clear at the top of the league, to being in a position where if MK Irish won their games in hand, they would have been 5 points clear. And so what happens at that point? People start coming to me and say, well, right, why is Rob doing this? Why is he picking that person? They're being backseat managers. And I said, I don't know. That's his decision. I trust him. We're top of the league.
Love this.
Yeah.
I love this. Pete, this is... I always had a saying whenever I was managing large teams. Give people, when you charge people with responsibility, they'll take responsibility if you have the right people. And then you can't get in there and start messing with them, right?
Nope.
You cannot mess with them. You hired the guy that you think is the right guy. Let him run with it. He's going to make mistakes. You're paying for those mistakes. And he's going to learn from those mistakes. And if after a certain amount of time you've determined, all right, I let him do his thing and it just didn't work out. He was the wrong guy, but you gave him a shot to go through the cycles of learning, making mistakes, making good decisions and seeing the rewards of those. That is the epitome of leadership.
Yep. I said Rob won the league last year by 9 points. We're still top of the league now. Irish have to win their games, and they've got a hard run. I'm not going to question Rob.
Yes.
It is down to him. We're top of the league. Why are you questioning this? We can't win every game.
Yeah.
And look at the games. Look, when we lost to Leverstock, fair play. They played well. When we drew with Potton, we missed the last minute penalty and we dominated them. When we drew with Biggleswade, they scored a last minute penalty. And so I think these football is a game of fine margins, but Rob is such a professional. Over the space of a season, we're going to come out the good side of these fine margins. And we did. We won the league with a game to go. And and I think that's one of the things about becoming a chairman. I think one of the things I learned very quickly, two things actually. I've learned a lot, but two things I learned. I've got to come to terms with that it's a weird business in that you can do everything right and then you can lose a game.
Mm-hmm.
And that affects the business. And so I've emotionally separated myself from that, become very stoic. If we don't get promoted, fine. We'll carry on doing our job. We'll carry on growing this football team. I'm not going to get over emotional about it, unless we win, of course, then I'll go crazy. But secondly, absolute trust in everybody in their position. Absolute trust. It's like Emma. Emma works. I mean, you met Emma. How good is Emma?
Emma's amazing. Yeah.
Emma doesn't know how good she is. She is unbelievable. And she loved
by the way, she loved my fake neck tattoo that I had for the day. She complimented.
I want you to get that for real. Emma will phone me up and she's like, I don't know what to do about this. What do you think I should do? And I'm like, I say to her straight away, well, what do you think you should do? She's like, and she'll tell me. I was like, well, do that. She's like, is that the right answer? I was like, I don't know. Go and find out.
Yeah.
Or she'll phone me up and tell me a decision she's made. And I've said, you've made the decision. I can't change it. You don't even need to tell me this. For our football club to keep growing, it has to be able to run outside of me. I need to focus on growing the brand, focusing on the business, all these other things, just get on with it. And I've learned this with this business more than any other business I've run because it is so unique that you just have to put people in a position of authority and trust them and say, get on with it and let them make their own mistakes. And football accelerated that because it's such a weird business.
Yeah. Wow. What would you say he thinks his secret is to hiring? Like what's he doing? Are you just so hands off, just like getting out of his way?
Well, I think that will change. That's something that's changing. I think originally, his secret to recruitment is just telling people what his ambitions are and how he's going to approach training. Rob demands professionalism from everyone, even from me. He'll pull me up if I'm not being professional enough with something. Absolute professionalism and commitment. And so there are players out there who you consider maybe journeymen who are happy to pick up their wage. Yeah, they're good players, they're naturally good players, but they don't care about going up too much further. Rob wants to find young, talented players who want to play at higher levels, that will listen and develop and work with him, who will train twice a week, train hard, who won't drink, will focus on their fitness. So I think his secret was is convincing people that under him, he will develop them and they'll become better players. I think we're in this fortunate position now is that people want to come to us.
Yeah.
People want to play for a team. You want to win leagues.
Is it his humility as well? It seems like he's a very humble person that,
yeah. But I think mainly it's not just people wanting to play for him. He's got to find players that want to play and be professional in the way he is.
Yeah.
So there are people he wants to find, but there are people out there who want to find him as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Because they want to play at higher levels of football. We've got so many good young talented players like Josh Setchell on the wing, Ben Stevens. Ben Stevens last year, he played for Kempston Rovers. I think he scored 12 goals. This season he scored 40 in the number 10 position. And under Rob, he will become a better footballer. He will learn more. And so for him being at our club is a great thing. And so I think it works both ways. But with such high profile now, people will want to come and play for us. At first, they didn't take us seriously. it was just this guy from Bedford, big loudmouth saying, I'm going to take this team to the Premier League. They've seen back-to-back promotions, growing crowds, investment. They know we're the real deal now, and people will want to play for us, Preston.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Talk to us about how the business side of this changes. Let's say you get up into tier 4 or 3 from here. What changes? Because I was hearing from some friends that like once you get up to a certain level, that the amount that you can spend on players is somewhat capped based off of a multiple of your revenue that's coming through the club. That way, you just can't like I
Buy
guess
your way up.
game it. Yeah, buy
Yeah.
your way up. So talk to us about some of that and like what the challenges are and how you plan to navigate something like that.
Yeah, that's the financial fair play rules, which a number of teams have been docked points at the higher levels for. Everton, Nottingham Forest have been docked points, and I think Man City are under investigation because they bent the rules. It doesn't affect us at our level, but I don't think about it anyway because we're already sustainable based on our revenue model. This is why I focus so hard on the business. I was chatting to my son about this yesterday because he was asking. I said, look, there's a film you need to watch, Glengarry Glen Ross, where we talked about always be selling. I'm always selling, Preston. Everywhere I go, when people ask me about the club, I say, have you been to a game? Are you coming? There's a game on Tuesday. Come down. I'm recruiting one person at a time around Bedford because people through the door, every person who comes through the door on a match day means £12.50 for the club. And so when we get a crowd of 200, that's £2,500. But you have base costs of a match day of paying the referees, putting on the food. So you may only make about £1,000 profit with that. Whereas on the game you came, where we had 1,000 people there, we took £18,000, take off our base costs and our cost of sales. We made over £10,000 that day. Now, if you could do that every day, every game, you got 25 home games. That's £250,000 revenue just on a match day. So that side of things is why sustainability is so important, because even with the investment, you can't just go and splash it on wages. You'll break the financial fair play rules and you'll lose points. But there's a couple of other things that have become really important to the club in terms of growing as you go up through the leagues. That is really important, but infrastructure is the big one. And there's two big things on my radar. One is our ground. So I've talked about our ground. We can sweat this asset up until probably 3 more promotions.
Oh, okay.
But realistically, if we keep getting those promotions, we need a ground suitable for league football, which itself will be a £5 to £6 million investment. But we have to start that work now. We have to be ready for when we're ready to be able to have that ground ready. But there's another really big change that's going to come that's really important. It's going from part-time to full-time. In the National League, the one below the 4 professional leagues, where Wrexham were when Ryan Reynolds bought them, they will be full-time. And then below that National North and South, you'll have a mix of teams which are full-time and hybrid. And so hybrid would be your manager will be full-time, and you maybe have a squad of 10 to 12 youngsters, like younger players who are full-time, and then maybe some youth team players, teenagers. And then you'll have a core of first team experienced players who are maybe 25 to 35 years old, who will only train twice a week or maybe 3 times a week in the evenings. Because you got to think, if you're 30 years old, you're a very, very good footballer. You may have a job earning £60,000, £70,000 a year, and you're also bringing maybe £15,000 a year playing football. You're not going to earn that as a professional footballer playing at this level. And so what you tend to do, you tend to find a lot of players, they never reach their full potential because they're never going to play in those divisions because they're not going to risk the finances for their family. So they tend to stay around this level. I'm always working one season ahead. So Rob always says 1 game at a time. If I ask him about our cup final on Wednesday, he'll say, forget that. We've got a league game on Saturday. We'll talk about that afterwards. I'm the same with leagues. I think 1 year at a time. So all the work for next season's done in terms of my preparation, and we're ready to go. I'm thinking about the season afterwards. If we get promoted, we're up in step 3. And so I'm thinking, can we be hybrid that year? Can we? Because not many teams do it at that level. But if we are, if Rob is full-time, and we've got full-time youth players, and we've got young players full-time, that's going to give us such an advantage over everyone else. So how do I fund that? How do I finance? What's the infrastructure for that? And so there's all of these things of a growing football club that you have to think about to try and get in place. And then to do that, you have to be sustainable. So, okay, if I want to have that full-time model, what does it cost me? Okay, well, it costs me that. Then I need to bring in this much revenue on sponsorship, this much money in on merch sales, and this much money on a match day. So there's like these competing things of what you want to do, but being able to afford to do it sustainably. And it takes up a lot of my time. Luckily, I have Danny on the podcast, the show, so I can do this because I'd say Preston, this football club is 80% of my time now.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Not to mention Danny's incredible, by the way.
Yeah, he's amazing.
And by the way, Pete, you said you're always closing. I'll close this one for you. This merch is amazing. We'll have a link to the in the show notes for people if they want to buy a Bedford hat or real Bedford shirt or sweatshirt. The sweatshirt's nice. I like sweatshirts without the hoodie on. So when I saw this, I had to own it. All right.
We by the way, we usually sell about one item a day on the club shop. We sometimes, like at the start of the season, we'll sell a bit more.
Yeah.
But it's about one item a day. Since the announcement, we've been selling about 10 items a day.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it just supports the sustainability of the club.
There hasn't been a conference that I've gone to that I hadn't seen at least one person wearing real Bedford gear around the conference.
That's kind of nuts, really, when you think about it, because every conference I go to, I think our merch is the most worn merch now.
I think so too. It has to be a little surreal, people walking around with Bedford stuff on.
Well, I get photos. So one guy was in a gym in London, sent me a photo. There's a guy working out in one of our shirts, one of our jerseys, another guy at the World Cup. And so it's starting to get spotted around the world, which is the really surreal thing.
Yeah. I want to go back to this additional micro equity offering that you had talked about earlier.
Yes.
Are you going to, I would recommend, and I'm curious if you would agree with this, you got to strip the voting rights out of whatever additional equity that you're going to issue here.
Yes.
And okay, that's good. And I think that a person that I know personally, if I was going to buy a small portion of equity of Bedford, I wouldn't want to own any voting rights. I want you to have the voting rights. I don't want somebody to step in there and start influencing the way you're doing this. So,
well, that's the same with Cameron and Tyler as well.
Really? Okay.
They're co-owners now.
Yeah.
But they don't want to be making decisions. They don't want to have to vote. They trust me. It's like, Pete, you get on with this. And yes, look, a football club, it kind of needs to be a dictatorship. It really kind of, and it is at the moment. I mean, I have people's opinions I seek, but if we do this raise, yes, we would strip out voting rights. I think there's a lot of people who just want to be part of the project.
Yeah.
It would be another way to stack more Bitcoin into our treasury. But ultimately, I think the big part of this is if it's 1,000 people, 10,000 people buying tiny shares, that's a 10,000 person marketing department.
Yeah. Yes.
Who are bought into the future of the club, going around to, I mean, did you meet Edgar?
No.
The guy from Minneapolis who had the flag. So Edgar, this is the second year he came. He runs a Real Bedford supporters club in Minneapolis.
Okay.
He gets 15 people together in a bar every game and watches the live stream.
That's hilarious. Yep. I've seen Real Bedford. I think there's one up in Ohio too. I saw it on Twitter, just like they had their own little Twitter group.
It's everywhere, man.
All right. So I was having so much fun when I was there at the game. I come back and I'm still watching a lot of the antics. You guys win the division after I got back to the States. And I'm talking a little smack online with the other team. So for people that aren't familiar, there's two teams in Bedford. Pete, when you bought the team, correct me if I'm wrong, you were 2 divisions lower than the other team in town, correct?
Well, yeah. Well, actually, kind of. Yes. But within 6 months, we were 3 below because they got promoted.
Oh, okay. So
I tried to buy them.
So I didn't realize this. So you tried to buy the other team, which was higher. What happened with the negotiations? Why did that fall through? And
so I went and told them I made a very good offer, an offer that you don't get for a club like that. Way more than they deserve. But because they were about to get promoted and go 3 divisions higher, I basically offered what I thought the cost was for us to get there. It's £500,000. That's a lot of money for a club at that level. But I also said to them, look, this is the plan I want to do. I'm working on an investment with some very significant billionaires. I think I can take them to the Football League. So we had a long conversation. They ultimately said no, I think for a couple of reasons. One, they were going into a higher division, and I believed he thought he could do it himself. I don't think he fully understood the proposition, but then I don't think many people have. I think a lot of people thought it was not a serious offer. But I think the bigger issues were is that I didn't want to change their name. They wouldn't have been Real Bedford. They would have stayed as Bedford Town. But I did want to change the colours. And ultimately, the current chairman, I didn't want any involvement for him. It had to be a clean break. You can be a fan, you can come along, but you'd have no involvement. And I think that was difficult for him. His dad used to be very much involved in the club, very respected man in the town. And look, ultimately, it wasn't right for him. So fine, that's not a problem. I think they were very surprised when we announced the buying of the next door neighbours. And rightly, we're a little bit worried. I also think they thought I was trolling them, calling it Real Bedford, which I wasn't, because I think they read it as Real Bedford, so they're not the real Bedford. But really, it was just more of a joke because it's a bit like Real Madrid, but from Bedford. So we're obviously nothing like them. So I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, so that's been a rivalry that's been bubbling. And this season has been bubbling a lot more because it's getting close to us being in the same division. We're confirmed to go up to theirs. They have a chance for promotion in theirs. If they do, then they'll go up to one above. But if they don't, we'll be in the same division.
Crazy.
They blocked you.
They're very sensitive. I mean, I kind of deserved it. Like, I'll admit, if I get blocked by somebody, I'll admit I deserved what I was calling them babies. I was saying that they were watering your field with their tears. I was telling them that they needed to have a box of tissue. A pallet of tissues delivered to their front door. So I deserve the block. But I find it hilarious, this rivalry. And I think that it's only heating up. Do you think they're going to get promoted this year? The other team?
They should do. Look, if I was betting on it, I would say yes. But winning the league is going to be hard for them now. They could do it, but it's going to be hard. If not, they go into the playoffs. And the playoffs can be a lottery. Yeah. It's one game. You don't turn up and the other team turns up, you can lose it. And so, interestingly, I want them to go up for 2 reasons. One main reason. I want to win the league next year. And if we're in the same division, that will be a distraction. That's all people will think about. We'll be competing on budgets. It will be a distraction. It will be a psychological distraction. So if they go up, I don't have to think about that. I can focus, and Rob can focus on winning that division. And then maybe we meet in the one above it. But the one above it, the level's so much higher, it'll be a great rivalry, but less of a distraction.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I want them to go up. If they don't, I mean, it's going to be fire, Preston. I recommend you fly over that.
I might fly over those games. Yeah.
It will be a sellout. It will be fire. It will be noisy. The whole town will come out. And financially, it'll be great for both clubs because we can host 1,500 and we will, and they can host 3,000. And I would not be surprised if you get 3,000 there in the town out for that game. The rivalry is interesting because I think they've got a big problem. Everything we've been doing, we've been working on for 2.5 years, building a brand, building a match day experience. And I don't think they realized the threat early on, and they certainly do now. And so now they're trying to change things at their place, but their crowds are falling. Some of their fans are disgruntled. And the way I explained it, I think they're trying to turn around a tanker and catch up with a speedboat.
Yeah.
And so at some point we will get ahead of them. If they don't get promoted, I think we're the bigger club at that point. We've certainly got the bigger following. We've definitely got the better business model, and we've certainly got higher revenues. The only thing they may have on us is crowds, but I think that's changing. Like I say, the trajectory of our crowds is up. Our crowd on the game when you were there was bigger than any crowd they've had this season. their average is higher than us. Our average is like 250. Theirs is like 450, 500. But more people are going to come next year for us because of the Winklevoss announcement, because of what we're doing.
Are the Twins coming over to a game?
I mean, they're going to have to at some point.
They're going to have to.
They'll have to come to the UK at some point for business, so we'll just time it.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to be forced to play your game, which there's no better way to define winning than having your opponent be forced to play your game, right?
And every football club will have Bitcoin eventually. And this, this is another funny thing, Preston, because a lot of people laugh at us and make jokes about us and make jokes about the Bitcoin thing. So, like, I'll go to a club and they'll make jokes, or we're not going to accept your Bitcoin, or they call us the Bitcoin. They just make all these jokes about us to do with Bitcoin. But I'm there thinking, that means you don't understand it.
Yeah.
That means right in front of you is this thing which can solve so many problems for you, and you don't understand it. You don't take it seriously. I'm sure if I turn around to you and say, how's your cost of living going? What's happened with your groceries? What's happened with the price of fuel? You feeling the squeeze? Have your interest rates gone up on your mortgage? If you've got less disposable income each month, they're going to say yes to all of those. And I'm going, okay, well, you should maybe look at. Yeah, exactly.
Sure don't. In fact, my costs have been going down, bro. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, and so they're making jokes, and it's like there's this thing here that will help you. So we've got this advantage over other football clubs because we're ahead of them with this. They'll all eventually get there, and I hope it's sooner rather than later. But
yeah, I just can't imagine. Seriously, how we started off the show. I can't even imagine 12 months to 18 months from now when these other clubs are looking at your treasury. It's going to be nuts.
It's going to melt their brains. What it's like,
their brains.
If you look at what else, we're kind of the grassroots English football version of El Salvador MicroStrategy.
Yes.
Everybody laughed at Bukele. The press were writing articles saying he's squandering their treasury. He's squandering the country's finances. He's wasting it on this Bitcoin thing. Michael Saylor, there was a time I think his investment was down about $1 billion and people were laughing at him and mocking at him. Look where we are now. Michael Saylor was right. Bukele was right. I know I'm right. And it's going to take that cycle when people say, ask us about the $4.5 million investment. I'm like, do you mean the $20 million investment? They're like, what? I say, that we haven't spent any. It's $20 million now. And then at some point it'll be 40 million. And then other big clubs up in the football league who are in debt and struggling are going to look at us and go, damn.
Oh, yeah. Yo.
Oops.
What's that?
Yeah.
What is the size of the treasuries if you had to guess on average for the one that you're promoted into, you're now in 4. What do those treasuries look like? Just so people can kind of understand the delta.
They probably don't exist, treasuries. Most clubs will limp through to the end of the season. And I know some clubs won't be able to pay the wages and will lose players. It's football is very much hand to mouth for a lot of clubs. There are outlier examples. There's a club called Farnham, very good club, run by a guy called Harry Hugo. They're similar to us. They're trying to do something different. He's investing. But most clubs lose money or break even. Very few clubs actually make money. Plymouth are a great example outside of the Premier League, and a lot of the top Premier League clubs do. Most clubs are losing money and limping through to the end of the season. We're finishing the end of this season. Forget the Winklevoss investment. We've still, I think, got 4.5 Bitcoin. I mean, that's, in English pounds, that's £225,000 just sat there that we can use at some point. But it itself might be £700,000 next year. We've still got, I think, about £60,000 in the bank. We are a comfortable club that's expensive to run because we're a good business and we use Bitcoin. And I've given it all out there. I've said to everyone, here it is.
Yeah, here's the playbook.
Here's the playbook. If somebody phoned me up from another club and said, listen, I want to do what you're doing. Look, I'll take the phone call. I'll explain to them. They won't be able to do exactly what we're doing. They're not going to get Gemini as a front of shirt sponsor and Galaxy as a sponsor and Ledger. They're not going to, those things aren't going to happen. They're not going to have Bitcoiners fly from all around the world to their ground. There are 4 other Bitcoin clubs now. I've spoken to all of them and they've asked for advice. And the truth is whilst they're Bitcoin clubs, we are the Bitcoin club. And so they can use the benefit of power of Bitcoin, but they're not going to get the community thing that I've managed to get. It's just because I went first.
Yeah.
But if any club says, and I'll be saying to them, you need to get investment. You need to be able to build a sustainable model. And if you have capital left over, you need to put it in Bitcoin and forget about it. You need to be thinking about 10 years from now, not a year from now. Because that's what I'm thinking about, Preston. I'm thinking about if we get in the Football League and we need a £50 million stadium and we want to have a go at the Premier League and that's a £30 million wage bill, well, where do I get that from? Well, hopefully it's my treasury that sat there for 4 cycles. Fingers crossed.
Lord, is this exciting stuff.
It is, yeah. Will you be back next season?
Oh, God, yeah. You tell me the dates, I'd book it like that on the spot. One other thing that for me was just amazing to see. I'm there watching the game, and I look up and you're in the stands, and who's right next to you? Your son. I see your dad there at the game. I'm leaving, I'm catching a bus to head back into town, and a gentleman comes up to me and says, "Oh, Preston, hi, blah, blah, blah. I'm Pete's brother." And I have a conversation with your brother. And for me, it was just so amazing and just speaks to you, your family, the town, like the whole bit of it. I don't know.
There's so much more than that. Because it's real community. And so be that you've got Emma, her son Sebastian's there. He always helps. There's Mark, who's a local Bitcoiner. He comes to every game and sells the merch for us. Jim behind the bar, Karen behind the bar. Everyone is so invested in this personally and emotionally, and people just want to help and be part of it.
Family. It's a family. It's a family. And it was really inspirational. Just very simple. It was very inspirational to see and to just experience. And I don't know, man. You're a close friend of mine, and I just can't thank you enough for bringing me out to Bedford because I had a blast, and this was an amazing conversation. So thanks for making time.
Well, I'm grateful for coming on your show. You know I love your show, and just appreciate you coming out. I knew you were having a good time. I could see it. There was a moment at the football. I was from a distance. I saw you with your Bitcoin tattoo on your neck, and I can't remember who you were talking to, but you had this big grin. I was like, and then I looked around, and everyone was grinning. I was like, people are having a good time. They're going to come back. Yeah. So thank you, Preston. I appreciate you. A good friend as well.
I felt bad after I got back and I took a shower and the tattoo was gone. It's gone forever.
Have you got no tattoos?
I have no tattoos.
Let's get you a tattoo next year.
Pete, we'll have the link for the merch. Anything else? A link to your podcast. Anything else you want to highlight or make sure is in the show notes?
No, just the football club. Promote that, and appreciate you and thank you again. And we'll see you. I'll see you before then, but I'll definitely see you in Bedford next April.
Yes, sir.
I think I heard sailors say, if it's good for $1 million, it's good for 10 million. If it's good for 10 million, it's good for 100 million. And if you take that concept and you start, applying $10 million per Bitcoin times 100, you start looking at those numbers, they're staggering. That is financial strength because they have the ability to use those assets as collateral to generate a yield.